Kamagawa Neon Dynasty spoiler season is here, and with it we got a lot of great stuff for Alchemy, some things to shake up Standard, and also some great Commander cards as well. So without further ado, let's get right into it with the Commie War. Our first card, mostly gonna see Commander play, I bet. Probably not for Standard, maybe Alchemy in the 5-color Dragon deck. But you exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls as its first one. Then the second one is return up to one other target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Each opponent will discard a card afterwards, and all the sagas in Neon Dynasty will have a third one where you will return it into the battlefield as its flip side, the creature side. And for this one, it is Okagachi made manifest. The enchantment creature, Dragon. Spirit. It is all colors, it has flying and trample, and when it attacks, defending player chooses a non-land card in your graveyard. You return that card to your hand, and it gets plus X plus 0 until end of turn, where X is the mana value of that card. So, it's going to be able to steal your opponent's stuff, make it big. Already a 6/6 flying trample, it's just going to make it bigger. You can probably steal your opponent's biggest thing that they get that you've destroyed before. All around, I think in Commander, gonna see play in the Dragon decks. In Alchemy, the only, I think, spot will be in the Tiamat style Fearsome Whelp deck, if that still goes on with Fearsome Whelp being nerfed. Standard, probably not as much, but on to the next saga, Dragon Commie Reborn, both the 1 and 2. You gain 2 life, look at the top 3 cards of your library, you exile one of them face down with a hatching counter on it. Then you put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. You can exile it and return it to Dragon Commie's Egg. When Dragon Commie's Egg or dragon you control dies, you may cast a creature spell from among cards you own in exile with hatching counters on them without paying its mana cost. Once again, probably going to see play in Alchemy in the 5-color deck, also in the Dragon deck of Commanders, but could also just be used in Standard as well, since Dragon Commie Egg itself will trigger even if you don't have any green dragons, since this is a green card, or red dragons if you're playing green-red. You will still get at least one trigger off of Dragon Commie Egg that you can use to get a huge creature from your hatching counter onto the battlefield, cheat it into play. Next up is Teachings of the Kirin. You're gonna mill 3 cards, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control, exile this saga, and return it to the battlefield transformed into Kirin Touched Orochi, which, when it attacks, you can exile target card from graveyard. When you do, create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token, and exile target non-creature card from a graveyard, and when you do, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So the creature side wants you to exile cards from graveyards. I'd say probably your opponents, but you can do it yourself. 2, you create 1/1 colorless spirits for creatures, put counters for non-creatures. But on this side, I think it's more useful maybe in like the Sultai self-mill decks that are coming around. You get some value out of it. Otherwise, it's just some decent value cards here. Next up is what I really want to show you guys for, and this Dragon Cycle is what I think is really going to break Alchemy in Standard, maybe. So Alchemy specifically because we have Fearsome Whelp, but Standard still using dragons to a high degree in the red-blue decks, and Atsushi the Blazing Sky probably gonna exemplify that. So it has flying trample, it's 4 mana. The important part is its modularity when it dies. So you can exile up to 2 cards for your library until end of your next turn. You may play those cards. That's the first one. The second one is create 3 treasure tokens. Now if you think about it, Velomachus is also still in the set. Also dragon is 7 mana. So when you have Fearsome Whelp out in Alchemy, you're going to play Fearsome Whelp. Turn 3 you're going to be able to play Azushi. If Azushi dies, you instantly get 3 treasure tokens. Next turn you're going to play Velomachus right away. But on the flip side, in the Standard, there's also Kyrie, the Swirling Sky. So you're playing this a bit slower, You're playing 4 mana, but you get the 3 treasure tokens, and your next turn, you're playing Kyrie the Swirling Sky. 6 mana, flying, ward 3. When it dies, you can return any number of target non-land permanents with total mana value 6 or less to their owner's hands. You basically board wipe their, bounce their board, if they have a board, onto the field on turn 4, or turn 5. And then you mill 6 cards, then return up to 2 instant or sorcery cards from your graveyard to your hand. And this is big, because you play Kyrie the Swirling Sky, even on curve. You get the 3 treasure tokens from Azushi. You mill 6 cards if both of them die. And then the extra turns deck, because even though All-Arena Epiphany is banned in Standard, you still have Alchemist Gambit. Extra turns deck, gonna have a ton of treasures out. Gonna be able to mill through your deck to find that extra turn spell. And you're gonna have enough treasures and mana to play them right away. Now, we also have Out of the Dawn Sky, the white version. Flying Vigilance, 5 mana. Not as exciting to me, I don't think. You look at the top 7 cards for the library, put any number of non-land permanent cards from the total mana value 4 or less from among them onto the battlefield. Kind of like a Sun Giant effect with 4 or less still. And it's only one time, when it dies. You put the rest on the bottom of your library, and then you can put 2+1/+1 counters on each permanent you control that's a creature or vehicle. This is going to be on like the top end of a white weenie deck, maybe the top end of like a green-white humans deck that I just played in Alchemy. But overall, I don't think it's as powerful as the other two, and that goes for Junji the Midnight Sky as well. Flying Menace, when it dies, each opponent discards 2 cards and loses 2 life. Or you put a non-dragon creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control. So this card could see play in the discard style decks, like with Tigrid and Tigrid's Lantern. You discard cards. You if Tigrid ends up dying, you can use this to get it back, put onto the battlefield. But overall, I think these two are the less powerful ones. We don't have the white or the green one yet, but we do have Kyodai, Soul of Kamagawa, the other last dragon spirit. That is all colors, flash flying. When Kyodai enters the battlefield, the target permanent gains indestructible for as long as you control Kyodai. Then you can pay Wooburg to give it +5/+5 until end of turn. Nothing exciting there other than the protection with the flash. Once again, maybe be seen in the 5-color deck, but also could just be seen normally. You're flashing it in like Alchemy to protect a creature that's about to get destroyed. Maybe you're protecting a Fearsome Whelp. If you have big cards in your hand you still need to get down. Maybe you're protecting one of your big beaters. And then next up are our Planeswalkers. The first one being what I think is the weakest of the group, and that is Kaito Suzuki. At the beginning end step, if it enters the battlefield, this turn he phases out. Only 3 mana, but he'll have protection automatically the first turn, so that's good. But all of his abilities, I don't think are really that big. You draw a card, then you discard a card unless you attack this turn, that's fine. It's a +1. His -2 is you create a 1/1 blue ninja creature token, that's his protection, other than the passive ability, which is also fine. And then the -7 is you get an emblem with whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, set your library for a blue or black creature card, put onto the battlefield, then shuffle. And that ability is great. The problem is it's 7 loyalty costs. And to get that, you need to be able to +1 4 times. And by then, I think you're pretty much already winning the game. So, next up is Tezzeret. He's back. Betrayer of Flesh, 4 mana. The first activated ability of an artifact you activate each turn costs 2 less to activate. You draw 2 cards, discard 2 cards, unless you discard an artifact card, is +1. His -2 is target artifact becomes an artifact creature. If it isn't a vehicle, it has base power and toughness 4/4. And you get his ultimate is -6. So you get an emblem with whenever an artifact you control becomes tapped, you draw a card. Starting off with 4 loyalty. And once again, I think this is a commander card. Probably not going to see play in standard. Artifacts aren't going to be that impactful in Standard or Alchemy in order to do anything useful with. And now on to the 2 cards that I think will actually see play in Standard or Alchemy, starting off with our second new Planeswalker. We've seen her before as the Wanderer, but now she is the Wandering Emperor. Emperor of Kamagawa, 4 mana, 2 colorless, 2 white. Has flash, and as long as it enters the battlefield this turn, you may activate her loyalty abilities at any time. You could cast an instant, which I think is great, because its +1 is put a +1/+1 counter up to one target creature against first strike until end of turn. That's fine, probably her weakest ability. -1 is create a 2/2 white samurai creature token with Vigilance, and her -2 is exile target tapped creature you gain 2 life. Starting off with 3 loyalty, and I think this card is gonna be great in like white weenie decks and like white mid-range decks. To have creatures that want to fight, it's super tricky. You flash it in, you flash it in early maybe. You +1 when in combat. You give your creature first strike that might die. Give it an extra +1/+1 counter to protect it. Give it extra toughness. You can just straight up create a 2/2 samurai at the end of the turn with Vigilance. Or you can just kill your opponent's next biggest thing, gain some life as well. All can be used instantly as soon as you cast it. Very great. And next is Cameo, Compliated Sage. Has 5 cost, 2 colorless, 1 green or blue Phyrexian mana, and 1 blue. And the Phyrexian mana being back, it just means you can pay a white, or not a white, a green, a blue, or 2 life instead of paying the green or the blue. If life was paid, this Planeswalker enters with 2 for your loyalty counters. You can play it for 4 mana and 2 life, but it enters the battlefield with 3 counters instead of 5. +1, tap up to 1 target artifact or creature, doesn't untap, turn gets controller's next untap step, which I think is interesting because normally its protections are its minus abilities, but this one is its plus ability. So you're going to be able to protect it from one big thing and still plus up to its ultimate. And it's -X, exile target non-land permanent card with mana value X from your graveyard, and you create a token that's a copy of that create card. So I think this is also good. You get like, let's say you get you're playing this in a Renin 7 deck, maybe you can play this. Renin 7 might be a better card for you. You instantly -5. You exile Renin 7 from your graveyard. If it died, you bring it right back a copy, and you can just keep going again and again with it. Next up, you have his or ultimate for -7. Create Cameo Notebook, a legendary colorless artifacts token with spells you cast cost 2 less to cast, and tap, draw a card. So, kind of a general payoff, general value. Overall, I think this is the most powerful Planeswalker, going to be seen in the blue-green mid-range creature decks, blue-green just overall mid-range decks. And last but not least, we have our Praetor. Our new one, we've already seen Vorinclex, and now we have Jin Gataxis, Progress Tyrant. He's back for 7 mana. And whenever you cast an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for it to copy. And this ability triggers only once each turn. And then his second ability is whenever your opponent casts an artifact, instant, or sorcery spell, you can counter that spell. This ability triggers only once each turn, which I think is great. Gonna be good for the blue control decks once again as a finisher, along with Whole Breacher Horror in Standard and Alchemy. You're gonna be able to cast. Imagine this casting in Alchemy. You're casting Discover the formula. You're gonna be able to draw 6 cards, fill your hand. He's gonna be hard to kill on not only the turn you play it, because your opponent has to play 2 spells to try and kill this if it sticks on the battlefield, but on the next turn as well, since it triggers only once each turn instead of only once until your next turn, he's going to be able to do that as well. And that was it for this video's Neon Dynasty spoiler seasons. There's going to be more coming up. We have a lot more to go through. We have the cycles, we have commander cards, and we have just a general Kamagawa rares and mythic rares that will be coming out in Kamagawa Neon Dynasty. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking and subscribing. It really helps out a lot, and thanks for watching.